Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of our series, Shelf Space with Kino Lorber, where we talk about all things film, filmmaking, and physical media with Kino Lorber's head of acquisitions, Frank Tarzi. And we also have a special guest with us today, Eric Wilkinson, who heads up acquisitions for MVD Rewind Collection. Nice to have another physical media expert and enthusiast with us today. Welcome, Eric, and always nice to see you, Frank. And thank you, everyone who are joining us as viewers. Once again, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions and share your thoughts. We'll be taking audience questions from the chat about halfway through the episode, but feel free to submit your questions in the chat anytime during the episode. And we ask that you please stick with the topics of film and physical media. If you do have any customer service questions, please submit them at the link in the video description below. We'll also put it in the chat. So, hello, Frank and Eric. Welcome. And why don't we kick off with how you two know each other and how you've been working together in the physical media industry?
Well, I don't know so many people know, but I left Kino and I started working for Kino Lorber. At that time, we were called Kino International in 1997. And then in 2010, I left and started a label called Olive Films and did that for 4 years and came back in 2014. And the rest is history. We did the Studio Classics thing and I was 10 years old. Eric replaced me at Kino Lorber.
I wouldn't say replaced.
Yes.
I temporarily stepped in.
Yeah. Well, it was at that time, it was more of I was doing acquisitions, then we did sales.
Yes.
I was involved in the sales department too. So Eric was the person that took over for me. And then him and I have we've been friends ever since. And then I think in around 2013, you left and you joined me at Olive for a short period of time before, and then and eventually you ended up going to MVD.
Correct.
And before that, you were at Anchor Bay and MGM.
Correct. Yep.
How long were you at MGM?
5.5 years.
Wow.
So we did, and I would have, MGM was sold to Sony and a consortium of banks at the time. So, I mean, we loved working there. I would have stayed there, but they sold it. And I eventually transferred over to Sony. I did work for Sony for 6 months, but a lot of the MGM people went over to Anchor Bay, and I was sort of pulled in that direction as well. So to join my fellow MGM coworkers at Anchor Bay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the labels today, they owe a lot to Anchor Bay because Anchor Bay was one of the first labels that did like specialized packaging, specialized collections through the studios.
Yeah.
And so there was, we were all fans of the label at that time. So
yeah, they were. If you remember, they would even like on VHS tapes, they would make like 2 tape sets with bonus features on videotapes. I mean, they were ahead of the curve.
I still remember the Evil Dead VHS one with the book and and all that. So.
Yeah, some good stuff.
Yeah, I feel like Anchor Bay is a name that I heard a lot of, back in the 90s, early 2000s. Not so much anymore, but that's good to know that they were such big players.
When Lionsgate bought Stars and took over Anchor Bay, they sort of retired the name. But my friend Tom, who I worked with at Anchor Bay, has reclaimed the name, and they're relaunching Anchor Bay as an independent film distribution studio. So you might hear them once again, hear the name once again.
Awesome. So you two work together at Olive. Now you work, Frank, you're obviously back at Kino. Eric, you're at MVD Rewind. Do you still sort of help each other out in your respective roles? Do you collaborate? I love the story about Cujo, where Eric, you produced all that amazing bonus content for Olive, but it didn't end up getting used, so you gave it to Frank for the Kino 4K release of Cujo. I mean, I love that kind of camaraderie. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I mean,
well,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, first of all, it drove me nuts that we had this opportunity. We shot this roundtable discussion with the director and the film's 3 stars, and it just sat unused for a decade. And when Frank and I talk all the time, and when he said that he was putting the 4K out, I was, begging him to use it because I wanted people to see it. It's a really good, really well done piece.
And then Paramount actually looked at it and they really liked it. And they said, when we do some screenings, can we show the extra before the feature? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And they were very happy about that. I don't know if they ever did or not, but I was asked that. And the thing is with Eric and I, like there are times where we've kind of promised each other not to outbid each other on packaging of our films. And sometimes the same film gets offered to both of us. I know Rawhead Rex, you kind of like stepped away because, and then we ended up picking it up. And then there's times where there's titles that he's interested in with MGM or with another studio that I may be also interested in, vice versa. We kind of like, all right, you want that one, you could have that.
I mean, there as a collector, there are some movies we were just talking about this before the show. There are some movies I want Kino to do. I mean, like when we were doing the MGM deal, Hannibal came up, and I wanted Kino to do Hannibal over us. I think he would have. I said to myself, Frank's going to do a better job. Not that I don't do a good job, but it's just the type of movie that it was, and the type of attention that it needed. I really felt that Frank and his experience, the movie benefited more by going to Kino. At the same time, a few years later, I'm proud of the work we did on Rain Man, and that was a pretty big step for me, because if you look at the films I pick, they're usually not Academy Award winning films.
But that was a personal favorite of yours.
Yeah, yes, it was.
And it was going to be your first 4K release. So my first 4K release ended up being Hannibal, which was that was another reason why I wanted it. I was kind of looking for a film that I could take a chance on the format. And I felt at that time, most of the films like Mad Max and stuff that I ended up releasing later were with other labels.
Yeah.
So Hannibal was a very good opportunity for us to do that, because it was a film that had done very well in the box office. It was a sequel to a legendary film.
Yeah.
And I felt like, all right, we'll take a chance to put it out on 4K. And it did very well for us. Amazing transfer. And early days of Dolby Vision, we did that, and cinematographer had to color grade it in England, which was kind of he got an incredible deal and rented the place for one day and just did it all in one day. And so overall, it was a great thing. And you and I have there's been other packages that have come available to both of us. And
we talk to each other about our releases, and Frank will give me advice on some of the things that I'm doing. Sometimes I will give him advice or point him in the direction of an actor or a star they're trying to interview. Sometimes one of the guys that shoots my bonus material, I share with Frank from time to time in case he needs somebody to shoot something. So technically, Kino and MVD are competitors, but we're very collaborative, and collectors, I don't look at us as competitors, in that collectors buy everything. So it's not like they're buying Hannibal over Rain Man, they're buying both. So, do occasionally do we compete for titles? Maybe, but Frank's got different tastes than I do. And a lot of times, it's like I said, collaborative, in that Frank might say, Eric, you should take this movie. This is a good one for you. And I do the same for him.
Yeah, and we've had this relationship is also, we do have that with other labels too. Somebody asked that question last time. I was like, no, we regularly exchange extras with each other. And when somebody releases a film, then we re-release it. They're very nice about sharing extras with us.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to packages, there's a couple of labels that I regularly talk to. I'm like, this is probably fits this brand a lot better than it does ours, and so and so. So this is something that and Eric is very enthusiastic. He's a big collector himself. So every time I do I remember when I did the Disney deal, he was like, "Oh, you got to pick this up. You got to pick that up."
Yeah.
He's regularly coming up with films, and there are times I'm like, "Oh yeah, that is with them. Okay, cool." So
Jerky Boys.
He really wanted the Jerky Boys.
The
movie
Jerky
to be
Boys
released.
movie.
It just didn't happen. So,
but that would be a good example of a title. Like if I was doing a deal with Disney and we were picking titles, like Frank would say, "Oh, Eric, you should take the Jerky Boys.
Yeah,
I'm going to take
doubt,
Scenes from a Mall." You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's a good example.
Another movie, but yes, Scenes from a Mall is horrible, but yeah,
that's what came to my mind.
Yeah, but Nixon. So
Nixon, there you go.
Well, I love the, the camaraderie and the collaborative spirit. You're always looking out for each other. I feel like, I mean, that's what I love about this industry is that it feels like that as a whole, as an industry. It's all about the love of physical media and collecting. It's not a very competitive space. I mean, obviously there is some level of competition because it's a business, but
Yeah.
overall there's like a common shared love for just film and collecting.
Yeah.
Eric, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so Frank, you touched on this in the last episode, but Eric, how have you seen the physical media industry change over the years?
Well, it's matured. I think that the casual, collectors sort of dropped out and has switched over to streaming. And what's left is, I liken it to the equivalent of, the Laserdisc collectors in the 90s where, you had these diehard fans that really wanted these awesome, in the 90s, you didn't have a lot of, if you wanted bonus material and commentaries and widescreen, you bought Laserdiscs. And I feel like the people that are left buying physical media now is similar enthusiasm as those back in the 90s that were buying these more expensive Laserdisc collections.
Yeah, and those Laserdiscs sometimes retail for $150,
Yeah.
120. It is a little bit larger, I would say.
Oh, it is, yes. It's absolutely larger, but I'm saying
it's a larger market, but
larger market, but
yeah, but it's a very good comparison. I think Laserdiscs are, the collectors are the people that are remaining that's still buying. They're more demanding.
Yes,
they want extras, they want special edition, and so but the business is regularly declining. That's not, nobody's gonna ever say that's not. That's gonna continue to decline. But fortunately, we have a very strong fan base that will continue to support physical media, and
it's about picking the right titles,
right?
I'm probably less bullish on comedies and dramas as I am for horror film, science fiction, action. It's just as in acquisitions, and especially with newer films, some stuff just works better on streaming, but I look at it. I look at it as if we're selling nostalgia. So I mean, if you looked at the Rewind collection, you see how I package it. I'm a nostalgia merchant, and that I'm trying to bring something to either an older collector, the way they remember it, and it brings that feel that they first had maybe when they first started collecting back in the 80s. Or a younger collector who was too young to experience it, but wants to hold something in their hand that looks and feels like it did back when it first came out.
Yeah, and an acquisitions is very, like there is. We both have our own taste. You have films that you love and there's films that I love, and when it comes to acquisition and how you can become very successful in this business is not completely go by your own taste.
Yeah.
Because if I just went by my own taste, like I've said this before, about 45 to 30% of what we've released is really films that I really love. But you have to understand there's like a fan base for a certain type of film, and this will work and this won't. And you just mentioned comedies and dramas. Comedies and dramas work great on DVD.
Yes.
They work great on VHS. All the big box stores used to carry them, especially comedies, but the Blu-ray format and the 4K format even more is not really set up for that.
Yeah. A good example of both of those things combined into one, when I picked up, which is a movie I love called Memories of Me.
Yeah.
And this is it was a comedy starring Billy Crystal and Alan King and directed by Henry Winkler. But it was a movie that I personally liked and enjoyed. And B, it was a comedy / drama. And it did not sell well. I mean, I wanted it to. I gave it a nice slipcover. I used the original artwork. Everything. I thought, it was. I think part of it was me trying to will this movie onto the consumer, thinking, well, I love it, they're going to love it too. And listen, that's not always the case.
No.
It didn't sell well. It's a title that.
Why do you think that is? That like comedies and dramas don't do as well in that format?
They're not visual, first of all.
Yeah.
You're not gonna think of a movie like you just mentioned, Memory. You're not gonna think, oh, the incredible cinematography of that film, or the incredible. So whenever it comes to real genre stuff, action films, those things on Blu-ray and on 4K, they just look better, sound better, and
Yeah.
everything else. Well, you watch a film with Billy Crystal, yeah, the film is really, really good, but it's not something that you need to watch on. If you have the DVD of it, you pretty much say, you know what, I don't know.
Good enough.
I don't know if I have to upgrade.
Or if they know it's on, streaming
It's gonna be
somewhere. Like,
streaming
if I
somewhere.
want to watch that again, I'll stream it. I don't need
Right,
to own that.
right,
Like,
right.
rewatchability, I think is definitely a factor. And a lot of cult and genre films and action films, they're just very rewatchable. So if I know I'm going to rewatch it, if I'm thinking like a collector, if I know I'm going to rewatch it, I'm going to want to have the best quality copy of that film available to me whenever I want to watch it on my shelf.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Eric, congratulations. You just recently announced that you're opening your first brick and mortar store. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And then I have a interesting question for you. And Frank, I'd love your opinion on this too. Since we're talking about the physical format and how films should be, in the physical format, do you feel the same way about physical media retailers? Do we want to bring them down from the cloud and back on the ground? Like, should physical media retailers be physical?
Well, I would love there would be, I miss the days that I walked into a Virgin Megastore or Tower Records and saw what was new on the shelf and everything. People discover titles that way, and that's how I think that we okay, I don't think we'll ever get
Oh, there's a bit of an echo. Oh,
okay.
We're good.
Okay. So I don't think we'll ever get to that,
that size.
But it's something like what Eric is doing, I think is great. I'm wishing him the best. I hope it really works out. I hope it's the first of many. I hope he's successful and other people start doing it. Maybe one day I'll do one. I don't know. So
I'm basically taking the same sort of retro approach that I have with the Rewind collection with the store, and that, and like you mentioned, Virgin Megastore. So, it'll be a huge used and new record store, but it's very important that I have 2,000 square feet, but it's very important that the right side of the store is going to look like an 80s, like a late 80s video store. I mean,
love that.
It's really important that I get the aesthetic right. Even if you're not going there to buy videos, you're going to want to come in and look at it. So and just like I was saying before, if you were an older collector and somebody who rented movies in a video store, you're going to want to come in just to see it and relive it. And if you're a younger collector that was too young and never got to see a video store, now's your chance, because I'm going to have half of this store set up just like that. And, I'm carefully curating the titles. Since I work in the business, I kind of know the right kinds of titles to carry. Probably much less DVD, lots of collectible VHS tapes that I've been scouring the tri-state area, trying to snatch up as many as I can. And, of course, I've been going big on buying record collections because I'm a huge record collector. I'm just as much a record collector as I am a movie collector. And I just want, people to walk in the store and have a fun experience.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, just like a record store, it's a place where people want to go, even just to browse, just to hang out. It just feels good to be able to be amongst those shelves, Before we turn it over to the audience questions, we do have some signature shelf space questions for all of our guests. Okay, Eric, what are your top 3 favorite films of all time and why? I have a feeling one of them is 2 words that begins with D and H.
Yes, Die Hard is my #1 favorite movie. It's up for 2 and 3. Logan, what are my
Roadhouse?
Roadhouse is up there. 3, and probably, maybe, dare I say, Rain Man. I mean, I'm so proud of that disc, and it's a movie I revisit often, once every year or two, and so I'll say those 3 for now: Die Hard, Roadhouse, and Rain Man.
3 very good choices. When and how did you first start collecting, and can you remember what titles you began with?
I don't want to talk about my age, but I started collecting but back in the early 80s, the VHS tapes were rental price. Not a lot of them were sell-through price, so they were very expensive. But the Select-Division CED format you could buy movies for $15 and $20. So I convinced my father in 1983, 84, which was the reason why I'm learned now why it was so cheap. He got a player for $100, and we got like stacks of these CED disc movies, but realized that because they were clearing them out because they were killing the format. But I fell in love with buying and collecting movies. The idea that you could buy a movie for $10, $15, $20 and own it and watch it over and over again. It was just, it blew me away. And I think like the first movies I ever owned were 16 Candles, Friday the 13th, The Lonely Guy, which is a movie I love, The Man with Two Brains. And then the first VHS I ever bought was The Breakfast Club. I always remember that. And I still have that tape.
Nice. Big John Hughes fan.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah, just it's so classic. Why is physical media more important than ever?
We're preserving the history of film. So, you hear these stories of some of the streamers making, like the version of Splash that's on Disney has changed some of the frames to cover up Daryl Hannah, which it's fine. I understand it. They wanted to appeal to children. I get it. But I think physical media is important that, or the French Connection, didn't they make changes to the French Connection because of Popeye Doyle's characters unsavory in the film. And, I think physical media is important that, we're protecting and preserving history.
Yeah, preserves the original version of it. Yeah, I mean that's the most important thing. There's so many movies that they're, now that every film that's shown they're adding a disclaimer, and not understanding that the audience that's watching it probably is smart enough to understand that this is an older movie, that the character that Popeye Doyle plays is not a good guy.
No, he's not supposed to be.
That's what he is. He's like but that's part of it. And I think restoration. That's another thing. I don't think the kind of preservation and restoration that happens now that we do would have ever happened without physical media. Because of course the big films they would all regularly restore Star Wars and Aliens and all that kind of stuff. But think about those kind of films that we've remastered. That
I mean, even stuff like we just put out Hardware Wars, and like they were going to use an old master, but I'm because we were doing a nice physical media release for this, I didn't, I took a look at the old master. I'm like, we wanted to put something better out, which if there wasn't physical media or if that was going to streaming, they would have just used the old master. So I mean, we're there's a lot of the movies, especially when you have like geeks like Frank and I, there are some movies that probably would have never gotten the transfer and restoration that we've done had we not selected them and put them out on disc. They would have either not got done, they wouldn't have been completed at all, or they would have just used whatever was
it's so easy to just release the previous master, especially if it's not a bad master. You could do that.
I've done that.
You've done it, I've done it. But when it's warranted and you have the right stuff available to you, especially if it's going to be done. Independent deals we could choose our restoration houses, so we could do stuff at a cheaper price. When it comes to the major studios, we're like locked in with certain mastering houses. We cannot take them to anybody else. So a master for a movie like Rawhead Rex costs us a lot less than a master for the same movie if it was with studios or with so we regularly that's another thing. And I think the studio preservation houses, like, I deal with them a lot more than you do, but with Universal and Paramount, they actually happy that the work that they just did, and they remastered this film just to protect it, just to save it, so the movie it's not lost forever. They love the fact that there is a label like ours out there that will take a chance on those little movies and put them out. And the fact, I regularly get emails from preservation people saying, "Thank you so much for putting this out. Our work and effort is not going to get wasted." So because they're not going to be able to stream those movies. There's not going to be, at best, they may get like a little bit of a little retrospective theatrical thing with Martin Scorsese or somebody comes in and introduces the films, you know, like we did for Republic Pictures and stuff like that. So that's another thing that I think that's great, is that we are, I think that we're willing to take chances on smaller films.
Yeah.
So,
and give them a second life, you know, or in many cases a first life. A lot of people are just discovering these titles through collecting and through the physical format. They would have never seen it, or they weren't alive to see it when it first came out.
yeah.
Last question for you, Eric, lightning round. What advice would you give people who are just starting out their collection or are curious about starting?
Buy what you love. I mean, that's, you know, buy what you love.
I said the same thing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Frank said. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you see a movie and you fall in love with it and you want to own it, you know? And the nice thing about physical media is, you know, you're not tethered to the internet if you want to watch it, you know?
And don't be a poser.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't
like,
buy stuff just because it looks great on your shelf.
all right, well, I have a lot of that. I have a lot of that.
No,
too.
but hey, you're one of those people that, hey, you're proud of the films you want.
I'm a completist.
You're a completist, and you're gonna buy. But you don't go and you know, I send you stuff usually.
Yeah.
And you turn down a lot of the big.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's not something you're into, you know, so
like a big.
it would really
yes.
look great on your shelf, but
Yes, I would look very important to have that that fancy foreign filmmaker box on my shelf. People think I'm refined, but
that's not.
this is not me. So, but yeah, buy what you love. You know, that's the best advice I'd give any collector.
Without a doubt, yeah.
And don't be ashamed of what you love.
Don't be ashamed of what you love. I used to be kind of, you know, be ashamed. I am not anymore. You know, we just finished that movie When the Bullet Hits the Bone, and it's a really dumb movie, but I laughed my ass off for 2 hours watching this thing, and I loved it. And now I'm like, it looks like a cult classic to me, and I wasn't even going to do a Blu-ray on it. Now I am. It's because I just think it's awesome.
Yeah, and you know, you know, it's just like, it's not guilty pleasure. It's not, you should,
Yeah.
it's a movie you
Right,
love.
shouldn't feel guilt about it.
Yeah, there shouldn't be no guilt. You love that movie, and I hate when people say, "Oh, it's a guilty pleasure," because they're excusing the fact that they actually love this film. No, you just love the film. Be honest, be proud of it.
Yeah.
The people that stand up and say Grease 2 is better than Grease, there's not that many of them out there, but the ones that do, I'm like, hey, I respect you for saying that.
I love me some Grease too.
Yeah, Grease 2 is not as good as Grease.
No, it's not as good, but there's different reasons. Like I don't know if it's announced. You mentioned a title that you're putting out that was a big bomb at the box office, a musical from 1980. Is that announced officially?
Not out, but you can say it.
No, but Xanadu. They're doing Xanadu. I love that movie. It's terrible. I mean, and I don't mean to insult
it is
you know, Joel Silver, which would be great if you got him to do a commentary. But I'm thrilled that that's coming out on 4K, I hope.
Yeah,
nice. On 4K. Like, you know, I'm not, I love to, I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit, nothing's more fun than trying to show one of these guilty pleasure movies, as you know, or your favorite movies. You know, movies like Gentlemen Broncos, or I'm trying to think some other PCU. I would wish you would do that one.
Well, you know, the thing is that I would say this much: I would probably have a better time right now watching Grease 2 than I would with Grease 1. Because Grease is really great. It's like a really great film, great cast and all that. But Grease 2, if you just want to just laugh and have fun,
it's campier.
Yeah, it's a lot campier. I saw it in the theaters, so I remember. It's bonkers in a lot of ways. The songs are like horrible but fun.
And I don't want to insult the filmmakers. We love Grease too. Maybe not for the reason they set out to get people to love it, but you know, it's what's not to love,
right? And then you said Xanadu. Xanadu has an incredible soundtrack.
Incredible soundtrack.
ELO and
unlike Grease 2, Xanadu has great music. Like the songs are great.
Yeah, they're really great.
But the movie is bonkers.
And the other thing that Xanadu has is this incredible Gene Kelly performance.
Yes,
Gene Kelly roller skating and singing and dancing with Olivia Newton-John.
That's the scene in the ballroom.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Which I think is that the last footage, or is that the last time he danced on film? I think
I
what
think
was
it
in
may,
that
it may be.
in
I'm
that
not
movie.
sure.
I
I'm
mean,
not sure when how much. I know that he appeared on some award shows and stuff like that, and continued doing stuff. But
it's a great movie.
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It really is.
Well, that's something to look forward to. And speaking of, before we get to the audience questions, Frank, do you have any announcements or
You just
news that
ruined
you
one.
want to share?
Well, he just gave them one. I'll go ahead
Right.
and there's a TV show that a lot of fans have asked for. It's a 1980s, early 80s TV show that was hosted by James Coburn called Dark Room, and it's like 16 episodes, I think. And so it's one of those anthology type of things. Each episode is like Nat Gallery and stuff like that. It's a really underrated show. We acquired it. We are going to remaster it and put it out on Blu-ray probably next year, because I don't think we'll end up finishing it by this year. So. And one more thing I just want to say is because a lot of fans have asked us so much, where is Lost in Translation and where is Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and stuff like that. We're waiting. We've reached out to the filmmakers. They have to be involved. The camera negative for Lock, Stock is with Guy Ritchie in England. We need to get access to that. So these are busy filmmakers that are very busy making movies. And we have two or three other filmmakers, and I don't want to mention them by name because people are going to guess what the movie is. That we're going through the same thing. And so please, please be patient. We're not going to be dropping anything. We're going to continue to try to release these, but it's just going to take time. Some movies, everything else that we've announced, it looks like it's about to happen pretty soon. But Lock, Stock, and Lost in Translation, those two are probably going to be. If they end up coming out early next year or middle of next year, I'll be happy.
Yeah, well, that's what took, when we picked up Rain Man and Swamp Thing, the participation of the people that we needed to get those completed. We basically had the work done. We had to wait. Like, I couldn't move forward on Rain Man without Barry Levinson. And,
Important.
we asked it's important, and I believe contractually obligated as
And
well. So
yeah,
it's
legally
the
mandated.
fans, just exercise a little patience. I mean, we want to bring these to you just every bit as fast as they want to buy them. But sometimes, we want to make sure that we're bringing out the best product, and in having the involvement of the filmmakers. We're bringing the collectors the films as the filmmakers intended.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases we get with Eternal Sunshine, that got delayed because of the pandemic, but the director right away said, let the cinematographer handle it. Let them do the color grading and everything. So that was an easy one. It happened pretty fast after that. But in this case, and some other cases, the director themselves want to be involved. And you run into these issues, Leviathan, we couldn't get access to the film elements because it was in Italy under De Laurentiis, and we waited for about a year and finally said, let's just create the master of the IP, because there was no other choice. Because we were not getting, they were not returning, they were ignoring us and they were ignoring MGM. So that's when that's not going to happen anytime soon.
So you all heard it here first. Sometimes it's out of, their hands. So thank you all for your patience. Sometimes it's just really, waiting for someone like Sofia Coppola to get back to you. And that's, Okay, so we will move on to the audience questions. We have lots of questions in the chat already. This is exciting. Devin Lucas is asking, will more of the Olive Library move homes to either company? How about all the classic blaxploitation films they had released?
Well, Olive, just like us, acquired films. They didn't own any of these movies. They acquired these films from the studio. So when the rights expired, different companies bid for them. And in some cases, the studio themselves are interested in keeping some of those films because they saw how well The Quiet Man did for us, or how well Running Man did, or then in some cases you have a Criterion coming in and acquiring Bound, which Olive, I released at Olive. I have acquired many of the films through either some of the MGM titles or some of the Paramounts we have. The blaxploitation films, I could tell you this, and I've said this before, are the ones that I've released have never really done very well for us. So I am less likely to pick those up. Another label, hopefully, you know, Arrow, somebody else will do them.
You know, it depends on how, like, especially if it's re-release, it all comes down to, you know, how well it sold the last time. Is there still demand for a title? So a lot of times, when I'm doing an acquisition, for a title that's been out before, I'll go on over to eBay and look up and see what's the average selling price. You go on Amazon where it's out of print, but marketplace sellers have it to see what it sells for. So if you have a title, an olive title that went out of print and used Blu-rays are selling for $5. I don't know if that's worth the re-release. There's little demand. At the same time, one of the olive titles that expired, The Last American Virgin, you know, the resale value was strong on that, and that was ripe for to have a release continue in the marketplace.
Yeah, and then in some cases they're also sometimes films are more expensive because they didn't print too many copies of them.
Yeah.
So that's a little misleading. Sometimes a film,
Olive didn't have that
a
problem.
film only got printed 1,500 units or whatever, and it's sold out, and so only a few people have it. So the price is
Yeah, like joysticks. So that was a
Right.
limited run. They ran
Right.
1,000 of them.
But when it comes to Olive, I actually have their sales history in front of me. So
Yeah.
I know when people are telling me you should pick this up and pick that up, I'm like,
Sorry.
yeah, I know how that did for me then. And you know, we've picked up many of them. You know, Boogans we did. We
Yeah.
did, you know, High Noon, and there's a lot of the Olive titles that we've re-released, and we have more coming soon from Paramount. You know, and through MGM we did. You know, we've done American Ninja, we've done Stone Cold, we've done a few other ones. You know, so but yeah, so that's that.
Okay, and Kevin William Wardle is asking, is the Scorpion releasing label going to continue now that Mr. Olson has passed away?
That's you.
I don't think so. There are people that currently own you know, they became the beneficiary of his will. We are in talks with them about that. I know Silent Scream will be the first co-release, but I'm not sure if we're gonna use the name Scorpion Releasing anymore, depending on, it might still be Scorpion something, but it'll be probably different. Yeah, so no, unfortunately, with Walt Olson passing and his brother passing earlier, who was the head of Code Red, I think those very cool little labels are no longer going to be around. So
I mean, I think the spirit lives on in Dark Force Entertainment on some level.
in some level. And then when I released, you know, right now, if you buy our upcoming release of First Love, Walt Olson was a huge fan of that film. So he originally it was going to be a Scorpion Kino co-release, but
I hope you're talking to Bill for that. Is that Bill? No, that's not Bill Cat.
Yeah, it was Bill.
Oh yeah, it is.
William Cat did a commentary for us.
Beautiful
commentary. And he did it with Lee Gambin right before Lee Gambin passed away. So that disc, if you pop it in, it's going to say in loving memory of Lee Gambin and Walt Olson, because the two of them were. That was a film that Walt begged me to acquire for him, and I actually had to talk to another label who I'm friends with to tell him to drop it, and I'll let you have this instead.
Yeah, we're working on a couple of re-releases from his label, including Cheerleaders Wild Weekend with Jason Williams, and the other one's escaping me. I forget the other one. But
well, you've also released a few of their re-released a few of their titles, right?
Yes.
And I'm about to, I guess I'm gonna mention two films that Scorpion had released and I've done very well with. I've acquired the rights, and we're trying to find the film elements to release them on 4K. And one of them is Death Ship, and the other one is Terror Train. Both of those are Canadian classic horror films from 1980. George Kennedy's and Death Ship, and Jamie Lee Curtis and Ben Johnson.
Can you get a Jamie Lee Curtis interview or commentary?
Well, I would hope so. You want to reach out to her?
I'm not afraid.
Jamie Lee Curtis, if you're watching this,
yes,
please reach out. Bruce Tiffy's question is, he's very stoked for the release of Wayne Wang's Smoke and Blue in the Face. Any more 90s indies in the pipeline?
That's definitely your question.
I'll be honest with Smoke and Blue in the Face. We did it as a favor to Paul Auster before you know, he passed away. He was friends with, he's friends with Richard Lorber, um, and so those are films that are, like I said, dramas don't do well usually on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I think Smoke is a great film. I think
Is that the
it's
Harvey Keitel?
yeah, Harvey Keitel. The last scene between Harvey Keitel and William Hurt should be taught in acting school. It's like two different styles of actors just working off each other. It's incredible. But anyway, I'm a big fan of the first one. Wayne Wang is right now color grading and remastering both films. They'll be out soon. But am I going to go out and look for more of those type of indie films? No. Am I going to continue to pick up titles from Miramax library when they become available to me? Yes, we would. But I'm not sure if we would do films like Smoke and Blue in the Face regularly, unless it's like a favor to the filmmaker or something like that.
Or, when you put those out, if they do really well.
Yes, yes.
So it's up to the fans. If you want more movies like that, you need to support the first wave of releases of those films.
Yeah, and also the price.
Yeah.
If it becomes available at a lower price to us, yeah, we would probably acquire it. But if the MGs, which is the guaranteed money, stay as high as they are for films like that, I don't think we would pick up many of them. So.
Coin Op TV has a question for Eric. I picked up a handful of Kung Fu Blu-rays at the last MVD sale. Will that be an annual thing?
We're working on it. One of our direct-to-consumer partners is oldies.com, and of course we still have the MVD shop. But I think it used to be just sort of Black Friday we were doing these sales, but we're trying to be a little more engaged and do some more sales throughout the year. And so I would expect to see an increased frequency of sales with both the MVD branded lines and our partner labels.
Exciting. By the way, I don't know if you mentioned the name of your store and where it's going to be located.
Well, the name of my store is called Wall to Wall Sound and Video. I've taken over what's called a dead trademark, and like we were talking about earlier about it being retro. So why not have the classic retro name? For anybody that was in a mall in the 1980s, will remember that brand. We're going to be in Franklinville, New Jersey. I'm not giving out the address yet because I don't want people showing up. But we hope to open sometime in the fall of later this year.
Awesome. Very exciting. So New Jersey.
Yes, in New Jersey.
Chris Roberts is asking, how are made-for-TV movies doing? I know several have been released, but huge untapped selection that has never been released. I think that can be for either of you.
Yeah, well, I've released more TV movies.
Yeah.
So
there is one I'm actually looking at, but I'm not going to say it out loud. But
yeah, well, TV movies, the ones that are famous, like The Night Stalker and Night Strangler and Trilogy of Terror, The Day After.
Yeah.
Those are huge hits. The no-brainers. They're going to do very well for us. The smaller TV movies, even the horror ones that we've taken chances on, have not done as well as we hoped. Whenever we've gone outside of that and picked up dramas or westerns and stuff like that, and they have done even worse. So the main reason many of the really key TV movies, the horror ones that are not out, is because many of them are not cleared.
Yeah.
Musically, sometimes they just don't have the needed documents to clear them. And in many cases, there's probably nothing there. It's just the studio is not sure they could license them. So there's a lot of TV movies that I've asked Universal about, and they've turned us down. They said, no, we're not. We just announced over the weekend 1989 movie that played on USA Network called Nightlife,
Okay.
with Ben Cross. And so that we put out. We've done some 90s stuff. We've done some of the TV movies, like I said, the horror ones usually do well. The sci-fi horror ones have done well for us. It's the really big ones that are not out is because they're not cleared, and the small ones, they're too risky because restoration and everything else. we picked, we released that miniseries, Fatal Vision, with the award-winning, Emmy-winning, with Carl Malden, even Murray Saint and stuff. That was a acquisition that I made, and we were going to put it out. It was going to be a 2K scan of the IP, and the IP had been destroyed during the last fire or something. So the only way we could release it was to do a 4K scan of the negative. So now all of a sudden, this film that we picked up, the fellow was going to be very cheap production, and release became a very expensive one.
But that goes back to what you were saying earlier about your being, sort of a preservationist. Like, you could have taken the easy way out and said, you know what, I'm just going to give this back.
Yeah, and
But
get
instead,
a title.
you did we
did the right thing.
You did the right thing, we just, I guess we need consumers to run out and buy a copy of that, support.
Yeah, and then but we also have had experience, like a movie called The Burning Bed.
Yeah,
Farrah Fawcett. We acquired the DVD and Blu-ray rights of that. We couldn't sell. We had problem. I think we sold all together around 1,500 Blu-rays.
Yeah,
but the DVD has sold like 20,000 copies. So that tells you that a lot of TV movies and stuff like that, they will probably better fit for that format than it was for the person that's like a big Blu-ray collector is not sitting around saying, I want to buy The Burning Bed on Blu-ray. The person that loves that film is fine buying it on.
Yeah, it's good at, like, DVD is good enough for that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Jonathan Mayfield asks, any more Van Damme in the works? Super excited for Sudden Death next month.
Works for 4K, and was it 4K?
I actually have two Van Damme in the works for 4K, but one of them is going to be new to 4K. That's never been out. Actually, I don't think I'm not sure it's even been out on Blu-ray, but I have I have to go back and check, but I have a Van Damme coming that's on Blu-ray and 4K soon.
There's a handful of Van Damme films that I would love to release if they became available to me.
Yeah,
and
same here.
Some of them are with studios that I've never dealt with, and other ones are they're just not available to me. My favorite film of his was Hard Target. I was so proud to release
I love it.
And we got all these incredible extras for that. John Woo and Lance Erickson, everybody else. And of course, we didn't get the man himself, but and then Sudden Death, is one of my other favorite films.
Die Hard in the Hockey Rink.
And and Time Cop would have been a cool one. At one time that was with Universal, but now it's not. Now it's with Warner Brothers. So
yeah.
But no, I don't have any more Van Damme. But like I said, if it becomes available to us, we would be looking.
Absolutely. No, we never. Neither Frank nor I would ever turn down a Van Damme title.
I have a funny Van Damme story, actually. In the 90s, my mom was working at a restaurant and he came in. So this was like at the height of his fame. And she had no idea who he was. And he asked the staff to take a picture, not the other way around. He forced my mom to hold his hand in the picture. And she's just like, who is this man? Like she like had no idea, who he was or what he was about. But the picture, she looks terrified. So that's my little Van Damme story. Next question is for both of us, or both of you, from Griff Redux. Has the title ever really surprised you at how well it's sold?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mentioned last time Space Camp.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good little film. We got some extras done.
I would say the one that stands out for me, and it's not really a cult film, but a documentary called Alive Inside, which is done incredibly well on DVD and Blu-ray, even as a documentary. It's a movie about how using music to help Alzheimer's patients. It just sold really well and continues to sell well. Like sometimes there are films that just sort of over-index, exceed our expectations and buck the trend, and we love it when that happens, because it's nice when you have sort of managed expectations for a title and it does incredibly well. So.
Well, I just mentioned Burning Bed.
Yeah.
I never thought that DVD would sell as well as it did. I thought the DVD would sell around the same units as the Blu-ray, and there's other examples of that, titles that have do 10 times more on
I was
DVD
just going to
than
say
it does on
the
Blu-ray.
double feature of the Van Damme, we put the Black Eagle and Lionheart on a DVD, on one DVD 9. Like we lowered the bit rate to fit 2 movies on 1 disc. And it is the DVD of that has outsold the, if you took the Black Eagle Blu-ray and Lionheart Blu-ray sales together, that DVD has outsold them 10 times. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can predict, and sometimes it's completely unpredictable.
Yes.
Yeah. And there are times where I've been told, like, what are you thinking about? Why would you pick this up? And I threw Walt was friends with other labels, so he would he would call me, and he told me somebody at Shout said, why is he picking up the Hotspot? It bombed for us. We barely sold 3,000 units. And I was like, well, because they did it wrong. They double featured it with a Heather Graham movie. Nobody that wants to own that film wants to own that double feature. It's like, to me, if you're a fan of the Dennis Hopper film, fan of that movie deserves a standalone release.
And the same with when we did the Vampire's Kiss. I think they double featured it with High Spirits or something.
Which is horrible.
But people want to have that. I'm not a huge fan of double features in general, unless you release them like you showed us earlier. You're missing an action box set where it has the separate,
unless it also makes sense.
And like I would have put Once Bitten with Vampire's Kiss.
Right, it's a no-brainer.
No-brainer.
It's like I don't want to pick on Shout Factory. We're friends, but some of the double features are very questionable.
Yes,
features.
I agreed.
So the Hotspot, we did a new transfer. We got the cinematographer to oversee it. We did some interviews.
What did they double feature that with originally?
It was like a Heather Graham, Ray Fiennes' brother, Joseph.
Oh, was it
that movie.
I remember we sold that at MGM.
Killing Me Softly or something like that.
Yeah, Killing Me Softly.
Killing Me Softly.
Yeah.
That piece of shit. So, so I couldn't, I remember I bought the double feature. I was like, I can't have this on my shelf. I don't want this on the shelf. And then, but we did Porky's 2 and Porky's 3.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. That double feature makes sense, but
because you got to put Porky's 3 is the Godfather 3 of the Porky's series. So by putting it with Porky's 2, you're guaranteed a sale. But us, we're collectors, we're completed. I'd have bought it anyway.
Porky's 2 and 3 double feature was one of the best-selling Fox titles.
I believe it. I believe it.
Well, there you go. Curating double features as an art. It's an art form. GK Fan 69 is asking, should we expect more new films that missed physical media releases from their studio coming out from Kino Lorber, like Bottoms that was announced?
Ooh, did that come out?
No, it has not. We're working on the extras, which is very complicated.
We want to see that.
Very complicated extra, but it's going to be a lot of really great extras.
I'm stoked.
It's going to have 2 audio commentaries and a lot of deleted scenes and everything else. Well, first of all, Kino Lorber releases new movies always because we are a theatrical company. Remembering Gene Wilder, that was brand new documentary. We played in theaters and we put it out. So our own theatrical department acquires some really good films, award-winning films. Last year, we got a Four Daughters, which was nominated for an Oscar. We are releasing new movies. As far as me acquiring brand new movies like I did with Bottoms, if the rights become available for right type of film, yes, I would. That was one of those situations where I think the filmmakers wanted the film to be put out on physical media. I think the studio was like, hey, let's see if one of our partners wanted it. And they reached out to me and I said, yeah, I would love to do it. I have asked studios for other, stuff that they're streaming, like some TV shows and stuff like that. But at this point, most of those offers have been turned down. But yeah, I would love to release more of them. But I don't want to, we are KO Studio Classics, and with Bottoms is probably gonna be released under the Kino Lorber banner because it doesn't make sense to put the 2002 movie, 2022 movie as, or 23, I think it's 2023. So
gotcha. Jeff K asks, have there been times when you decide not to release a film even though you love the film personally? This can be for both of you.
Not to release a film, meaning so it's a movie that we would love, but we know it's going to sell like crap, so we don't put it out. Is that what you mean?
The asking
price. That could be a reason, yeah.
I mean, I could see that. And then well, I could just tell you right now that there's sometimes you end up not renewing things.
Yes.
Not renewing Code of Silence hurts.
Yeah,
because I love that movie.
Yeah, you want it out.
I love Code of Silence. It's my favorite Chuck Norris movie. It's Andrew Davis. It's like great action film, but it just didn't sell as well as I hoped it will. And I think it's a strange thing, but I think Chuck Norris is more of a DVD actor. It's like most of the Chuck Norris stuff that I've put out on Blu-ray have not done great, but Jean-Claude Van Damme on the other side, on that end, is very much a Blu-ray. So yeah, so when the rights to a film that you really love, we're realistic. There's films that I acquire that I know it's not going to do great, but I know we're not going to lose money on them. Like a film like Juggernaut, which I loved, it's a 1974 film. When it expired the first time, we did not renew it. But a few years later, I decided to go back and pick it up again. I said, I'm not going to spend money on a new transfer because I know it did not sell well. But I said we would re-encode it as a BD50. It was originally BD25. Add subtitles, add a few things, a new audio commentary, and slipcase and all of that. And we did it. And the second version actually, I think, is out. The re-release is outselling the original release. Because I think the fans are happy that we actually went back and fixed some of the issues. So yeah, in a lot of cases, when we have a film that, there's movies that you really want, but the asking price is too high, or somebody comes and outbids you to a point where you're like, no, this is too risky now. That happens, yes.
So many reasons, a myriad of reasons why you might not put something out, even if you love it dearly yourself.
Right. And as I said earlier, you cannot just go by your own taste, because if you go by your own taste, you have to go. One of the things I used to always talk to Walt and Bill about was they always went by their own taste. It's like, Bill was like, oh, this rented really well in my video store.
They did not do projections. They saw something, they liked it, and they something to be said for that.
Listen,
a marriage, a marriage of passion and business acumen.
Yes.
Okay, a couple more questions, and then we'll probably wrap. This question is for Eric. Totoro is watching, asks, are there more 4K titles in the works at MVD?
Yeah, several. I'll just say that several. We have less people, I'll say, working on. It's basically me that has to sort of oversee these. So we're not as we don't put out. We're not as prolific as Kino Lorber in the number of releases, but I have several in the pipeline that are probably going to hit at once. So, and I have one title on the fence that I have a 4K master. I have to decide whether or not it's like that question, should I put this out on 4K? And if I'm putting it out on 4K, am I doing it because I'm a geek and a fan and I want it on 4K? Well, other people, I'll have to ask Frank, see what he thinks.
You can ask me about it later.
I'll ask you about it later. But yes, we're working on several. I'm really excited. I'm trying to get 1 or 2 announced before the end of the year to come out for the end of the year.
Awesome. That's very exciting. One more question. Any chance, the Vid54 is asking, any chance of more Italian sword and sandal pictures? I know it's a niche market, but is it very difficult getting good widescreen masters?
If Hercules and Hercules Unchained became available tomorrow with a brand new 4K restoration, I'll release it in 2 seconds because I know it would do very well. Some of the major ones, I would do them. I released a few, either because it was directed by Bava or whatever else. Because they were available to us for reasonable prices, and the mastering, restoration work had already been done in Italy. Most of these films the film elements are in Europe, so they become very, very expensive acquisitions. We have looked into the 2 most famous ones, which is Steve Reeves's Hercules and Hercules Unchained. They're public domain in the US, but nobody in Italy cares about that. So the film elements are in Italy. The people the rights holders are asking for a lot of money, so that's why it hasn't been released. Like in a perfect world, all that stuff would, these films would they wouldn't be as expensive, it would be easy to release, and everything would be available. There's so many movies that are either rights or like with some company, like there's all those films that are with Bristol Myers Squibb, which is
the drug company.
They own the rights to the Stepford Wives, the original classic. They own the Sleuth with Michael Caine and Laurence Olivier. They own the original Heartbreak Kid, which was directed by Elaine May, and it's the star Charles Grodin. It's Charles Grodin.
Is it like a case where they're not I don't know.
And they own a bunch of smaller films, including a very good TV
Do they
movie.
care? I guess, do they care? Or is it?
They used to license it to Anchor Bay. They
Yeah.
licensed them. They licensed to some companies in the past, but I think when a major studio acquired them to remake them, they paid a very large sum to them. So now they think the films are worth a lot more than they actually are. So.
Very interesting. Did not know that. One last question from me, actually. Frank, are any more Studio Classics titles gonna stream on Kino Film Collection? Got a shout out Kino Film Collection.
Yeah, I've been asked to curate some stuff for the channel. We did our first 6 movies in July, which were all like classic films, like by directors by Jean-Pierre Melville and Jean-Luc Godard and other great directors. And yeah, I've set up a list of titles that we're gonna try to put in October for Halloween and a couple other stuff in November. Once they're approved, I'm hoping they'll be on the channel very soon. It's a matter of both departments agreeing. I'm been asked to curate them, and I'm going to continue doing that. So,
do we want to answer Robert Hoagling's question from the Saturn Awards?
Oh yeah, he had a question. What was the question?
He had asked why some 4Ks do and some don't include a Blu-ray in the package with the 4K.
Right. For us, 95% of the time when we do not include the Blu-ray, like for Night of the Hunter or Manchurian Candidate, the original and all that, is because we don't have the Blu-ray rights. We had only 4K rights.
Sometimes you like MGM splits up Blu-ray and 4K rights.
Right. The Blu-ray rights was the Criterion, and we released them on 4K. But and in some cases, in like Touch of Evil, it was a 3-disc set. It was 3 discs on 4K, 3 discs on Blu-ray. We decided to give each one a separate release. It just didn't make sense for us to put 6 discs in one package and charge $200.
Yeah, so it's either, the answer to that question, it's either sometimes it's a rights issue, or in our case, I try to keep, it's not that we don't like putting bonus material on 4K discs, but the cost of authoring, or God forbid, reauthoring a 4K release can be very expensive. So the less you put on a 4K disc, the less chance you have to make a mistake. So I typically, our 4K discs are movie only, but I always include the Blu-ray, also has the movie, and all the bonus features are on the Blu-ray. So
right, we always include the audio commentaries because they don't.
Yes, commentaries don't take in space, and those are usually. But
yeah, but also even though it's triple layered UHD 100, the size of the file is so much larger than the size of a Blu-ray master that by adding additional extras on that 4K disc, you actually are interfering with the picture quality. It's not going to be as so the least amount of like space used for for extras and stuff, the better.
Yes.
At most a trailer or two, and that's the way I usually look at them.
Like a master class in production, like disc production, the physical media business. This has been really, really wonderful. So just to close out, thank you. Thank you to everyone watching, joining us today. Eric, thank you so much for being our special guest. Frank, thank you for being you, as always. Check back next month for episode 3. And of course, just want to mention that you can find some of the titles we discussed today, along with thousands of others, at kinolorber.com or klstudioclassics.com. Both of those links are in the description below. And while you're there, sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already, and be sure to follow us on social. Frank, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, what's your website?
Oh, yes.
I would say you can go to mvdshop.com, oldies.com, or mvdvisual.com.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.